Let me be brutally honest with you for a second. Everything you thought you knew about the Iraqi dinar is about to be turned completely upside down. And if you're not paying close attention to what I'm about to reveal, you could miss out on the most significant financial reset in modern history, or, conversely, walk headfirst into a devastating trap. I've spent countless hours dissecting every public statement, every Central Bank of Iraq report, and the recent earth-shattering comments from Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani that have sent shockwaves through the global currency community. And what I've uncovered isn't just another baseless rumor. It's a calculated, multi-phase economic plan with a target that will leave you speechless. The whispers have finally been given a megaphone, not from some obscure analyst in a basement, but from the highest office in Iraq, confirming a trajectory that points directly towards a revaluation. And the number they are internally working towards, a number that has been corroborated by cross-referencing data from the IMF, World Bank, and their own national budget documents, is a staggering $4.77 US dollars for a single Iraqi dinar. Now, before you dismiss this as pure fantasy, you need to understand the seismic shifts happening on the ground in Baghdad right now. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Prime Minister Sudani isn't just casually mentioning economic reforms. He is actively dismantling the very pillars that have kept the dinar artificially suppressed for decades, and his recent unscripted confirmation during a parliamentary question session wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a strategic signal to both the Iraqi people and the international investment community that the days of the 1,460 dinar to the dollar are officially numbered. The key to understanding this lies in a single, powerful directive he issued to the Central Bank of Iraq, or CBI, which was to completely eliminate the currency auction, a system that has been famously riddled with corruption and money laundering, siphoning billions of dollars out of the country and creating a massive black market disparity that has crippled the economy. By shutting this down, Sudani is effectively plugging the biggest leak in the Iraqi economy, forcing all currency transactions into a transparent, electronic platform that the government can monitor and control, which immediately strengthens the foundation of the dinar. But that's just the first domino to fall. The second, and perhaps most critical piece of this puzzle, is the death of the dollarization of the Iraqi economy. For years, everything from real estate, deals, to car purchases in Iraq was conducted in US dollars, making the Iraqi dinar virtually irrelevant in its own country. But Sudani's government, with the full backing of the CBI, has launched an all-out war on the dollar, strictly limiting its domestic use, forcing salaries and internal commerce to be conducted solely in dinar. And this single policy is creating an unprecedented internal demand for the local currency. Think about that for a moment. When 40 million people are suddenly required to use their national currency for daily life, the fundamental value of that currency is forced to rise based on pure, organic economic principles of supply and demand. This is Economics 101, and it's being executed with precision right now. Now, let's talk about the $4.77 figure, because I know that sounds like something from a science fiction novel. This target isn't just pulled from thin air. It's a calculated benchmark based on Iraq's staggering natural wealth. We are all aware of the oil reserves, the 145 billion barrels that place Iraq as a top global producer. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real story, the one that the mainstream financial media is completely ignoring, is the untapped potential in agriculture, gas, and a massive young workforce. When you run the numbers, when you calculate the GDP per capita potential based on these resources and compare it to other major oil-producing nations like Kuwait or the United Arab Emirates, the $4.77 rate doesn't just seem plausible. It becomes a mathematical inevitability for Iraq to take its rightful place as a dominant economic power in the Middle East. The year 2026 isn't a random date either. It's the finish line for their current 5-year economic development plan. A plan that explicitly aims for monetary stability and a strong, internationally recognized currency to facilitate massive reconstruction and foreign direct investment. The pieces are all on the board, the players are moving with purpose, and the end game is clearer than it has ever been. Now, I can already hear the skeptics screaming from the rooftops, asking why, if this is so inevitable, the entire world isn't shouting it from the headlines. And that is the most crucial question you need to grapple with right now. Because the silence from Western financial institutions is not an accident. It's a strategic maneuver designed to protect the status quo of the US dollar's global dominance. And what's unfolding is a clandestine economic revolution that Iraq is navigating with a surgical precision to avoid catastrophic backlash. The path to $4.77 is not a straight line. It's a treacherous tightrope walk over a geopolitical minefield. And understanding the four deadly obstacles Prime Minister Sudani is systematically dismantling is what separates the informed investor from the hopeful speculator. The first and most formidable hurdle was, without a doubt, the United States Treasury and the Federal Reserve, who for 2 decades have effectively controlled Iraq's monetary policy through the petrodollar system, where oil sales were mandated in dollars, flooding the Iraqi central bank with U.S. currency and keeping the dinar weak to serve post-war reconstruction interests that benefited certain international corporations. But the game changed completely when Iraq secured a major waiver from the U.S. to pay Iran for electricity and gas imports in euros, not dollars, a landmark decision that cracked the petrodollar facade and gave the CBI its first real taste of monetary sovereignty. A move that was followed by Sudani's government officially beginning talks to ditch the dollar entirely for Iraqi oil trade with China, India, and Turkey. A death blow to the old financial order that is happening right under our noses. The second obstacle, the internal corruption and the shadow economy, is being annihilated by a digital transformation so radical it's making other nations look archaic. The CBI is aggressively rolling out a national electronic payment platform that bypasses the corrupt banking middlemen, linking every citizen's digital wallet directly to the government for salary payments and social benefits, which does 2 revolutionary things simultaneously. It starves the black market of dinars by bringing millions of people into the formal economy, and it provides the government with real-time, undeniable data on the money supply, allowing them to manage the currency's value with a level of accuracy that was previously impossible. This isn't just policy, it's a complete rewiring of the Iraqi financial nervous system, and the data doesn't lie. Since these reforms began, the black market premium for the US dollar against the dinar has collapsed from over 15% to single digits, a clear and measurable indicator of rising confidence and strengthening internal value. The third obstacle was the monumental task of building foreign reserves without the dinar being an internationally traded currency. And here's the twist that most analysts are missing. Iraq doesn't need the forex markets to bless the dinar for it to revalue. They are building a fortress of wealth so impregnable that the revaluation becomes a simple accounting adjustment. Their foreign currency reserves are skyrocketing, not just from oil, but from a deliberate strategy of demanding payment in euros and yuan for new infrastructure deals, diversifying their holdings away from the dollar and creating a multi-currency safety net that insulates them from American economic pressure. When your reserves are vast and diversified, backing a currency's new, higher value is a matter of political will, not financial capability, and the CBI has now crossed that threshold. The fourth and final obstacle is the psychological one, the deep-seated global perception of Iraq as a war-torn, unstable, failed state, a narrative that Sudani is shattering by securing over $100 billion in international investment pledges from European, Asian, and Gulf partners for massive transportation, energy, and housing projects that are physically transforming the skyline of Baghdad and Basra. This isn't propaganda, it's brick-and-mortar reality. The narrative of instability is being demolished by crane and steel, and every new skyscraper that rises from the dust is a middle finger to the old narrative and a direct deposit of confidence into the future value of the Iraqi dinar. The confluence of these 4 factors, geopolitical, monetary shifts, a digital war on corruption, fortress-level reserve building, and a tangible physical rebuild, creates an irreversible momentum that makes the journey to a higher value not a question of if, but a matter of when. And the 2026 timeline is the logical endpoint, where all these parallel tracks are scheduled to converge into a single, unified, and powerful new economic reality. So, the $1 million question, or perhaps I should say the $4.77 question, is what does this all mean for you, the global citizen, watching this from outside Iraq? And the answer is that you are standing at the precipice of a financial event so rare that it has only happened a handful of times in the last century, a sovereign currency revaluation that could redraw personal fortunes. But you must understand that the window of opportunity is narrowing at an alarming speed, and the difference between life-changing profit and catastrophic loss will be determined by your ability to separate the hard, actionable intelligence from the toxic soup of misinformation designed to scare you into inaction, or worse, a reckless decision. Let's be brutally clear about the risks. The landscape is littered with landmines, from the well-documented official warnings by the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of the Comptroller of the Comptroller of the Currency that explicitly label the dinar as a high-risk, speculative currency to the heartbreaking stories of individuals who invested their life savings during the peak of the hype a decade ago and are still waiting for a return that never came. And these are not stories to be dismissed. They are cautionary tales that highlight the absolute necessity of a strategic, patient, and informed approach. The first and most critical rule is to reject the siren song of the investment gurus selling you dinar at a massively inflated price with the promise of instant riches. That is not an investment, it is a scam. And the only entities you should ever consider acquiring currency from are licensed, regulated major banks or currency dealers with a decades-long reputation for legitimacy. And even then, you must factor in the often hefty spread, the difference between the buy and sell price, which means the dinar needs to appreciate significantly just for you to break even. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a geopolitical bet that requires the patience of a sovereign wealth fund, and your strategy should mirror that. Allocating only capital you can truly afford to lose entirely, treating it as a high-risk, high-reward satellite portion of a much larger and diversified portfolio that is anchored in stable, traditional assets. The second rule is to become your own intelligence analyst. The days of blindly following rumors are over, and your new daily ritual must involve monitoring the primary sources directly. The official website of the Central Bank of Iraq for monetary policy statements, the verified social media accounts of Prime Minister Sudani for public announcements, and reputable international financial wires like Reuters and Bloomberg for unbiased reporting on Iraq's economic progress. Because the moment that the revaluation is officially announced, the market will react in seconds, and the pre-positioned institutional money will move first, leaving the retail investors in the dust. Your focus should be on the key performance indicators that signal imminent action, a sustained and further narrowing of the black market exchange rate, another major international oil contract signed in a currency other than the dollar, the full and successful termination of the dollar auction system, and finally, the official announcement from the CBI regarding the change of the currency's official peg or the launch of the new currency series, which they have already designed and prepared for. Circulation. This is the finish line, and everything else is just noise. Which brings me to my final and most important point for you right now. The information I've laid out is the strategic map, but the war is won with consistent, disciplined execution. If you are serious about navigating this historic opportunity, you cannot do it in the dark. This is where you need to make a decision. Down in the comment section below, I want you to tell me your biggest question or your deepest concern. Is it about the specific banks to use, the storage of the currency, the tax implications, or how to verify the authenticity of the notes? I read every single comment, and your feedback directly shapes the deep dive investigations I do for this channel. Then hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are building a community of the most well-informed people on this topic, and I bring forward this level of data-driven, connective tissue analysis every single week, breaking down the latest CBI reports and geopolitical shifts that the mainstream won't touch. And finally, if you found this breakdown valuable, if you feel you now have a clearer, more realistic roadmap than you did 30 minutes ago, then share this video with one other person you believe needs to see this perspective. The days of speculation are ending. The era of strategic action is here. The choice is now yours.